Hello and welcome back to C# series tutorials, and in this video we want to work with Windows Form application, and the topics that we will cover are first how to creating a Windows form, and after that some controllers such as text box, label, button, checkbox, ready button, and list view we will cover during this tutorial. And I should mention that this tutorial is for the person that already familiar with some other programming language like Java, C, C++, or any other programming language, and wants to learn C# and need a very fast tutorial to make them familiar with C#. So this tutorial is for this kind of person. So in order to create a Windows form, we should go to the Visual Studio. So we should open the Visual Studio. So when we open the Visual Studio, here we should create a new project. And here we should select the language C# and for the Windows and desktop. So here we have two different Windows form applications. One of them can be work with and .NET Framework, so it's based on the .NET Framework, and another one is based on .NET Core, so Windows Form app .NET Core. So there is two difference, and since the .NET Core is the new version of the .NET, so I prefer to use .NET Core, although when we are working with Windows Form, there is a significant difference between these two technology. So, but select Windows Form app with .NET Core. Next. So, project name, intro to Windows Form. Okay. And yeah, that's it. Just create it. Okay. So when we create it, we will see this form. So it generates some default files for us. So in the Solution Explorer, we can see the files that generated with the ID with Visual Studio. And if you don't have the Solution Explorer, so it's easy. You can go to, so for example, now I close it. So you can go to the View, click on the Solution Explorer, or you can easily type the Solution Explorer here to have Solution Explorer. So in the View, I click on Solution Explorer. Here in the Solution Explorer, we have our file. And in the solution, so the name of our solution is intro Windows Form that we selected already. And one solution can have several projects. Here is our project, and the name of our project is intro Windows Form. So this solution has only one project, so we don't have several projects there. And the form one is the form that is generated for us that we want to work on it. So, so it's the code that we have in the form one. In order to design our form, we should just double click on the form one to have to open our viewer, our designer to edit our form. Okay, so it's our form. So it's obvious that it is empty, and because we didn't add anything there, we can run it. So if I click on play here or run here, our project will be run. So only a simple window. Okay, so only a simple window. We can minimize, maximize, and close the window, but there isn't any other controller there. So I can close it. I can add my controllers there. So I can go to the toolbox. So if you don't have toolbox here, so again, easily you can go to the view, or you can search the toolbox here. So toolbox, to open the toolbox, you can go easily to the view and click on toolbox to open the toolbox. Okay, so in the toolbox, I have several components that I can add them in my form. So for example, button, checkbox, checked list box, combo box, and so on, several more. And here we can see all the items that we have there. So we want to design our form based on these controllers and work with them and see that how they are working. So let's add two text box there. So text box, two text box here. So the text box is for inputting data, and I also have label. So two labels to show that what's the purpose of these two text box. So I want to make a very easy project. I just want to put some number in the text box and then show the result to the user. So I need another box for the result. So again, text box here, and I also have a button. So what I want to do, I want to when user should put the numbers here, and when click on this button should see the summation of these two numbers in the third text box. So each items that we have in the form has some properties. That the properties we can see here in this window. Again, it's not there. You can easily just click on the items that you like and go to the property to have the window there. So I want to change the label, the text instead of label, one say that's number one. The second number, so for example number 2, just user know that's what's the purpose of this text box. And here result or summation, so result. And also here for the button, I want to change it to add. So when I'm selecting any of the items, so I have the properties of exactly that item. So when I click here, so I have the properties of the text box 3, so it's the name of the text box. And when I'm clicking here, when I'm changing the properties, I'm changing the property of the my button. So I want to change the size of my window, my form. So first I should click on my form and then I can change the size. And I can arrange it. So when user put the data there in this text box 1 and text box 2, we want to see the result in text box 3. So it is better that change the name of the text box. So instead of having the default name for our text box, so for example here the name is text box 1, text box 2, or text box 3, so it is better to change their name, because when we change their name, so when we are coding, it is more clear for us that we are working with which controller. So I should go to the name, and here I should change the name first. So for example, I put TB means that text box num1. So for this text box, and for this text box TB num2, or can be any other names that you like. For this text box TB result. And also I want to change the name of my button. So I want to change it to B add, so means button add for me, but maybe you prefer some other format for naming. So and now I should put some codes for add, that when a user click on the add button, calculate the summation of the num1 and num2 and input put it in the result button. Sorry, in the results text box. So let's double click on the add to go to the codes to write our codes for the add button. So we should be careful that exactly click on the button, not somewhere else. So I want to click on the double click on the add button. So it's going to the code and create an event. So it's a click event for the button. And here I can write the codes that when user click on the button, what should be happen. So let me declare variable int num1 is equal to text box num1 dot text. So when we are typing dot here, we should select that which property of the this controller we want to work with. So now we want to work with the text, so the data that user input in the text box. So the text. But if I go to the next line, give me an error because the type of the data in the text is integer. Sorry, is a string. But my variable is integer, so I should convert it. So there is a class convert dot, so I can convert it to, so convert dot to, for example, int 32. So it will convert it for me to integer, and the same for num2. Text box num2 dot text. So now I have the numbers from the text box and put them in my variables, in my local variables here. So I can add them together. So in the new variable, for example, result is equal to num1 plus num2. And then I want to add them, I want to show, and then I want to show it to the user. So in the text box result dot text, so I want to show it the result there. But again, if I type the result, it will give me error because the type of the result is integer, but in the text we should put a string. So I can do it easily with type putting dot to a string. So it is a method that converts my integer to a string. So that's it. This is my code that should work. Now I can run my project. When we are running our project, it's automatically save our code and then run our project. Okay, so it is our window. And now I want to put, for example, 10 and 25. So when I'm clicking on add, it should show me 35 here in the result. Yes, so it's work and is fine. Okay, so let's back to the design view. So here there is lots of more controllers that we can use them and work with them. But for the moment, we saw about the text box, label, and button. So another thing that we can work here, we can see, look at some of the properties. So for example, for font, I can change the font to the bigger size, for example, 15, or change the color. Yeah. And yeah, so on, and lots of more properties here that we can change them. I will use Ctrl Z to back. Okay, so another control that wants to work with is checkbox. So I want to add the checkbox here. Okay, what we want to do with the checkbox is when a user click on the checkbox, if it is ticked, if it is checked, we also allow user to edit the number, and if it is unchecked, doesn't allow user to edit text box. So I need two checkbox. So one for num1 and one for num2, and I will write editable, and the same for the second checkbox. Again, editable. Let's change the name. So I'll go to the name. So checkbox for num1 and checkbox for num2. For num2. Okay. So in order to active our checkbox, I should double click on my checkbox. So here I can say that checkbox num1 dot enable is equal to my checkbox num1 dot checked. So what will happen now? If it is checked, so enable become true. So the value for the enable for the text box num become true, and they are boolean. So it's if it is true, so it is editable, and if enable is false, so it's not editable. And if we tick the checkbox, so it is true, and if it is not ticked, so it is false. And the same we want to do for the second checkbox. But now for num2 dot enable is equal checkbox num2 dot checked. Okay. So now let's run our project again. So let's see. So if I click here, so it is become enable. But when I make it unchecked, so it become the enable become false. So the same here. But as you saw, the default when we are running our project, so it is in the default is enable for editing. So at the default is enabled for editing, but they are not checked. So it is better to have the default value for our checkbox as a checked. So we can go to the checked. Yeah, we can go to the checked and make it true, and the same for here. So in this case, when we are running our project, so in the default they are checked. So as you can see here, as the default they are checked, and when so now I cannot input any number, but when this tick is, I can put the number. Okay, so now the next control that we want to work with is radio button. So I want to add two radio buttons there. So the purpose of the radio button that I want to work with is based on the radio button that's selected, I want to add them together or find the summation of these two numbers. So I want to change the text of my radio button to add and minus. Okay, so now I want to change the text of the add to result. So when I click on result, I should check the which of these two radio buttons checked or selected, and based on them, we also find the calculation of these two text boxes. So when I should go again to the code for the result, and here I need the if statement. So if radio button, so I forgot to change the name, so let's change the name. So radio button add and radio button minus. Okay, so let's back. If the radio button add dot checked, so if it is true, so I can compare it with true, but it's not necessary. So if it is true, so it means I should add them. So I shouldn't declare variable inside of the if. And else, if the radio button of the minus the checked is true, so the result is equal to num1 minus num2. Yeah, I'll finally show the result. But if none of them is selected, so else we can say that the result is equal to 0, or we could have a default value for the result, so equal to 0, omit the else part, so doesn't matter any of the method that we can use. So now let's run our code. Okay, so now let's check about how our project is working. So the first one is 20 and the second one is 5. So when I'm not selecting any of them, so should be show me 0 here. So show me the 0 here. And if I click add, so add them 20 plus 5. And if I select minus, so show me 15, 20 minus 5. And as you can see here, the difference between checkbox and the radio button is radio button we can select only one of the options, but then in the checkbox we can select both of them or none of them. Okay, so it's the difference between radio button and checkbox. The next control that we also work with is list view. So let's see list view. And the purpose of the list view is showing several items there. And in this project, whenever that I'm clicking on the result, I want to add the result to the list view as well. So I have the history of the result of all of my calculation. And let's change the name of my list view as well. So list view results. And let's put it here. And again, let's go to the code, so to the result button. And when I'm showing the result in the text box, I want to add it to the list view as well. Okay, so how can I add items in my list view? So the name of my list view is list view result dot items and dot add. So I can add items here. So in the bracket in this method is doing it for us. So I want to add a result. And in the list view, I need to change it to a string as well. Okay, so let's see. Run our project. Okay, example 3, 10, add, so result becomes 13, and then change it, for example, to 12, result becomes 15, and for example, to 2 become 5, and let's minus them, and so the result becomes 1, 10, result becomes 7, minus 7, and so on. So I will add all the items in our list view. So it's the purpose of the list view. And you can change the property of the list view to how you want to arrange the data inside of your list view. But it's not the purpose of our fast review on C# components. Okay, there are the options that we want to cover during this fast tutorial. As I mentioned already, this tutorial is for the person that are familiar with other programming language and wants to work with C#, wants to work with C# and need to become familiar with C# very fast. So this tutorial is for this kind of person. So because of that, I'm not. Because of that, I didn't go to the details there. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed and see you again. Take care.